Morning, fellow YouTubers, and welcome back to Disabled DM. I'm German D&D, and today's video is going to be simply some rule building in using Be a Better Campaignmaster by Michael Booker and the folks at Absolute Tabletop. Before I get it started sharing my screen and showing you what I'm gonna be doing and how I'm going about it, I should fill you in on my campaign setting. In my campaign setting, the Dragon God of Io is an unknowable being entity that wanders the void of space. As such, every universe and dimension and plane is one of his scales. So in the cosmology that I have set up, he's traveling through the void of space, and he sees a tail in front of him, and he bites it, thinking it's another beast, but he doesn't realize it's his own tail. And from this is when he bites it, he breaks off two scales and 5 drops of blood fall. The 2 scales form Bahamut and Tiamat, and the 5 drops of blood from the primordials, all concepts of balance, space, time, change, and perception. And when these primordials manifest, their dreams create the deities, the races, and the wolves. So as they dream, currently there are 12 universes. Each of them have 12 planets. So today we'll be looking on Calderra, the second planet in the universe of the Star Order. So as you can see here, all I have right now is the name of the plant and and I'm using Microsoft Paint because this is a very rough draft that I'm going to be taking into Campaign Calderra 3 to answer you up later. So the first step I do is I need to decide where I want this world to be land-wise. Now, my previous planet I did had 3 or 4 major continents and a bunch of decent-sized islands. And it was high fantasy, low to no technology. Okay. This time, I want something a little bit simpler, or maybe two big land masses with a bunch of smaller islands that really don't have any towns or anything on them. Just maybe caves and stuff that the party can explore when I run campaigns and one-shots. So the first thing I'm gonna do is pick my pencil tool. I'm gonna come over here. I want the smallest line available, and black is fine for a color. And I'm gonna draw some kind of weird shape. And I want it to be somewhat easy to duplicate, even if it's not perfect. Because in Campaign Cartographer 3, I'll go and put the finishing touches on the shape of the continents and islands. So, I'll use something kind of along the lines. Like I'm doing here. And it's just something that's really simple. And I'll move over here to the right side. And I want something that's a bit bigger. It takes up quite a bit of room. So something about like that is my two main land masses. Now I'll go in with Campaign Cartographer and I'll make the edges look better and I'll put in more indents and stuff like that. But this gives me an idea of the general shape that I want. Then I'll come back in and I want some small islands. And these will just be simple little shapes. And you can place them pretty much anywhere you want on the map. In my case, I like to have pretty much the entire map filled up. And then let's put in a bigger island, like right here. And that might have one town, I don't know, city on it. And this step is very crude. It's nothing fantastic or lies. But that's okay because it doesn't have to be. It just has to be enough to give me kind of an idea of what I want the map to look like. So there we have our basic world map as far as land masses. Now I am going to go in and see if it will let me select. Okay. Okay. Now, I know there's a way to fill in the entire ocean, per se. Uh, but since I'm not particularly familiar with it doing it that way, there it is. Now, unfortunately, by doing that, it also filled in some of our islands. So we will undo that, go back in and see if it will let me do it again. And same thing happens. So, Microsoft Paint is kind of picky. I only use it because it comes with my computer and it's pretty cheap. So what I'm gonna do, and this is what I did on my original painting, for my original planet, is I'm gonna go in the hallway, and I'll only do a tiny bit right now, how to kind of go around. I'll just kind of align. Enough for me to know later I'm gonna go in and paint in the entire area with that color. And it's fine if you go over the edge a little like I did, but because when I finish up, these islands won't look the same anyway. And for some reason, okay, the dots are disappearing as I draw. And that's pretty much all I do for the water. And again, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular, because this is far from what your players will see when you give them a mobile map. This is only the first step. So that's basically what I do for the oceans. And so now I'm gonna go back in, pick my thin line again. And the next step's adding geography to these continents. So what I want to do is figure out, okay, what kind of board or do I want this to be? Is it all mountain peaks, or is everything floating? So I thought about this, and given my prior role was high fantasy, which I love, and low tech, I want to do something different with this one. This one, I want to make it a high level of technology and a high fantasy. And my idea for this is technology is powered by magic. So you'll have stuff like ships with engines that are powered by magic gems or crystals. You'll have basically a laser blasters that are powered by magic gems, and you'll have have word for urgent constructs such as mechs that are all powered by magic crystals or by some kind of magical source. So given that, uh, the way I would see a planet like that is that most likely a the cities would be domed cities, and the world wouldn't be necessarily already bustling with life. It would be kind of a barren wasteland. However, the way I'm gonna set it up is just like a normal world. There's plenty of geography, rivers, earth and red stuff going on. And then over time, with the technology, the forests will diminish as the pollution will creep into the water more and more. So I'm gonna go and say, okay, hey, I got this big landmass here. What do I want to do with that? Well, I like the idea of this being kind of some mountains and forests and plainlands type thing, a typical continent. So I'm gonna look and say, okay, geography normally follows the curve of the land. So in this case, you can see that the curve for this side would be a somewhere along like this. And let me do that in black so it stands out a bit more. So this would be my basic curve of for this continent. So along there, I am gonna place mountains. So what I will do is I'll go in kind of like this. And again, the artwork doesn't have to be fantastic. It's just enough to give me a kind of an idea of what I want. And I kind of draw them using the curve. And I'll continue with this all the way up and around the curve. And then when I'm with that, I will come back and add some shading along the lines. All right. Now up here, I want this to be a forest, right in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and kind of fill all the color in with green in to make it notable that it's a forest. And it doesn't have to be perfect, especially on your first draft or your rough concept. But I want to get a couple spots that's done, and then I'll show you guys some more of the supplement tricks that are used. And then I'll go back in and I'll kind of do some small circular patterns over the green. Just enough to give me the indication that it's supposed to be a forest. And I use the same generic technique all the way through rivers, towns, all that good stuff. And of course, I'm not the most artistic person in the world either. But that doesn't matter because this is not the map your players will see. This is just your own guidelines. Right. And your players may end up seeing a version of this map. That's totally up to you. And then I'll go in and I'll do a little bit of shading along some of the lines just to make it kind of stand out a little bit more. Okay. And then I want to pick kind of a grayish color, and I want to come back in with my paintbrush and kind of go in over the general area of the mountains, and then I'll redraw those black lines. And I'm sure there's easier ways of doing this, but this is just my own rough concept. Okay. And then I'll come back in here. And I'm not being super particular because this is just a rough draft. So, that's mountains, forests. I want to do a river next. Now I am gonna go ahead and use the paintbrush tool instead of the pencil for this. Okay, I need a darker blue. Now, rivers normally a flow from the mountains downland. So knowing my curve and my elevation is heading basically a north and to the left, my river would start somewhere along here in the mountains and flow kind of in a meandering pattern to the sea like that. Of course, you can't see it very good on the forest, but it runs right through the forest. Then I'm gonna go back, and again over here, I want a curve of mountains. And I wanted some somewhere along there. Unfortunately, that color doesn't stand out very good. Not good enough for me to see it very easily. So I'm gonna go in about like that. And it doesn't matter that it's all messy because I'll clean all that up before I'm done with the entire map. And that's my curve for my mountains. So now I'm gonna switch to a lighter gray. And I'm gonna come in here and use the thick line. And I'm gonna just kind of scribble a little bit of the curve for the mountains. And then I'll go back and pick my thick thin line. I picked black again. And I would draw the lines for the mountains along that like I did up on the first Earth island. However, I'm gonna do something a bit different here. Because I want the inside of this mountain range here to be a desert. And I'm actually gonna edit the color on this because I want it a little bit lighter than the one I could have. And for some reason, my Microsoft Paint program's acting up. But that's the basic process I use. I pick different colors. I pick like where the deserts will be. I place towns along the rivers, etc. I am gonna stop sharing that screen for a minute and figure out why it's being so picky. And then I am gonna open up the map I've already finished with is Microsoft Paint. And it took me about 100 hours because I went into big detail. And I follow all of the same steps that I was showing you on this map as well. So I will share screen and for some reason Microsoft Paint's being a bit of a hassle. But as you can see here, this is basically what it looks like after 100 some odd hours of work in Microsoft Paint. And you can see I've named the different locations, the different towns. The bright blue lines are the travel routes in the oceans. And then I take this map into Campaign Cartographer 3. Now, I want to close out my Microsoft Paint. Okay. And I will go to a document. And then I will share screen the document. And this is the document I'm using for my round. So far it has the universe, Earth, and the names of the planet. Now the planet map that I have done is Hangra. And that's the first planet in the starter. So I'm gonna scroll down after the planes of existence and the names of the planets, and I'm gonna type in the planet Angra has several continents, islands, and various locations. And I'm just gonna do a couple because I know some of the locations. Okay, I know we have the Green Woods, which is a forest. And then I'm gonna leave a little bit of space there. We have Mythos Isle. Now this isle is a jungle. We have the sweeping bare dunes, which is a desert. We have Thunder Peak. No, sorry. Thunder Thunder's Kiss Peaks, which is mountains. We have the swamp of Kazar, which I don't need to write down swamp because it's in the name. And we have Cinder Earth Fall Rapids, which is river. We have Crystal Lake. We have Fix, which is a forest town, and it's more of a village. We have Rubis, which is a coastal town. And swamps, we got a desert, we got the jungle. Oh yes, and we have Alex Folly, which is tombs. The Field of Blood, which is a battlefield with a bunch of crypts. And we have Ravenfrost Keep, which was a fortress but now is ruins. And then we got Skull Keep, which is a fortress. And there's a lot of other places. It's something like 300 locations on that whole map. So now I'm gonna go in and, oh yes, we need an ocean. And I know one of my oceans is called the Shrouded Sea. So that gives me basically a one of each type of terrain and a couple of towns and locations to work with. So I'm gonna go back into my Better Campaignmaster book because the map for this one's already done. And I'm going to scroll through the entire section and until I reach the features for each location. And the first one is mountain features. And, and in the supplement, you can do a roll or on the table, which is a D100, or you can just pick something you think is cool. In this case, I am just gonna roll up random stuff, of some of which may make it into my actual setting for that map, may not, because I have some things already planned. So in this case, I rolled a 21. A 21 on the mountain features a jagged chasm made of rocks formed by violent tectonic fractures. So I am going to go back into my Word document. And under is peaks, a jagged edge rocks formed by tectonic fractures. And that's my main feature for those mountains. And I will do the same aim for each thing on my list of locations. So the next one is rivers. And I'm gonna scroll through the PDF until I get to the river features. And again, this is a D100 roll. Oh. And the nice thing is you can roll it or you can just pick something that interests you. So this time I rolled a 66. So I scroll down the table till I find 66. And this is a realm-spanning river known for the various bridges of differing cultures built over it. So I will come back into Hangout. I will again share my screen in from my document, and Cinder Fall Rapids is a realm spanning river known for the bridges of differing cultures that cross it. And I'll continue to do this forest, jungle, desert, swamp. They have things, and that's all of them. But I'm not going to show you or do it all now. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. because it's the same feature for all of the geography features. So jungles and all that are exactly the same. Except for there's different options and different tables you roll on. So I'm going to fast forward down to cities and settlements. Now they give you a D100 table that you can roll on. What your town's known for? What kind of resource do they produce? Now, in my case, on my document, which I will go back to, I can see I have Trix, which is a forest town, and Rubis, which is a coastal town. Now, Trix, I don't need to roll for because Trix was given to me from one of my players' backstories. And his backstory was the forest was full of rare and exotic mushrooms, and his family used to go into the forest and pick them. And Trix is known for exporting these delicacy mushrooms. So their resource is mushrooms. And Trix is a small village. Now, Rubis, Rubis again was given me to me by one of my players' backstories. But the only thing in her background story was it is a very religious town. So very religious, and it is a city. It has several thousand people. But I want some kind of resource for it as well. So I am going to roll a D100, and I came up with 8. Well, on the D100 resource table, 8 is pepper. So they are known for some kind of spice that they make pepper out of. So their resource is spice. And I'm gonna change it just slightly and make it spicy peppers, which is a vegetable. Or kind of like we would think of a jalapeno or a chili pepper. So that gives me my ounce. Now, outfit supplement goes into what is going on in the towns. Um, so I will scroll to forest and jungle towns. And they ask us to roll a d20, or you can pick. I prefer rolling because it makes it totally random. So you can have all sorts of crazy stuff. Of like a sea made of glass or tar. And it really helps give your roll a unique feel. So I rolled a 10 on the d20. 8, 8, 8. And it says, built inside a jungle clearing, this village is known for the most beautiful pottery in the realm. That does not fit it, Tricks. Because Tricks is about agriculture and mushrooms. So I am gonna re-roll it, and I got an 8. Okay, A, and with an 8, this forest city is built on stilts, with traps that keep the enormous ants below at bay. Submersion in the ant mounds below is used as punishment for heinous crimes. So in the town of Tricks that's on stilts, they have giant ants below the town. And that they throw people all who are being punished in there. So I will go to Tricks on my document and type in built on stilts giant ant mounds below used for punishment. And I'll do one for Rubens as well, which is a coastal town. So we will scroll down to coastal towns. And we'll roll another d20 and see what we get. And this time I rolled a 17. So I scroll through the table till I hit 17. The primitive tribal frog people town await signs of a great prophecy that foretells the swallowing of the entire world by water. This doesn't really fit because this is a backstory of one of my player characters who is not a frog person. And so instead, I am going to pick one and I am going to say that the main mode of transportation through this city is by way of the many canals that run through it. Because that kind of fits what my player was going for with that hometown. Now, on my document, I don't have to write all that. I just have to put main mode transportation is canals. Just enough for me to know what it is. And then I will scroll all on down past the towns because I no longer need that section of the PDF. And they have tables for your locations such as tombs, empires, but I don't have all that set up yet based on my map. So I am going to go to the end of the PDF, which has questionnaires. And I'm going to begin there. And the question is pretty easy. So I will share my screen with you. Sure. As you can see, I have the PDF pulled up, and it has a venturing location with a line for a name, aim, the type of location, and features. And you can roll up to 6 features based off of that PDF of outline. So you could have multiple things going on in one area. And then you have plot hooks. So I am going to go back to my document, and I am going to do Thunder Key is peace. Now we already have one feature. It's jagged edge rocks formed by tectonic fractures. So, that's fine. I want to give it an additional feature. I want something really weird and unique to be going on. So I'm gonna say that these mountains are inhabited by storm giants who like to throw lightning down from the peaks. So this whole mountain range constantly is throwing big arcs of lightning down. Now, that's not quite enough for me. I wanted to include a cavern that has a magical mist. And I want this mist to do something that causes the players to have to think of how to travel through it. some kind of check, maybe a constitution check, my first thought would be some kind of like nauseating list. But I don't really like that idea for this because I've done that in several campaigns and sessions. I want something a little different. So I am gonna say dismissed teams like shards of glass and rips at players' flesh. And what it is basically if you ground down glass and got the real fine powder and had it blowing in the wind. So, while they're traveling in this cavern, which if they ever do, they have to go through the cavern to get up to the stone giants to negotiate a peace treaty or resolve the situation with the stone giants so travelers can travel safely. So they're gonna have to go through this. So they're gonna have to figure out a way to protect themselves or take the damage it's going through. Because there's no way they would be able to avoid the mist in the cavern because it fills the entire cavern. And I continue doing that for all my locations. So that is basically how I set up a map and really expand on it. And then I go into some further details. Once I have the locations, the features, plot hooks, I then decide, okay, what nations do I have? And usually what I do to make it simple is one continent or one island is its own nation. And then each island or continent is its own nation. Occasionally, I will put two nations or empires on the same continent. And then I fill out a name for the nation. What type? Is there a monarchy, an empire, a theocracy, a democracy? I list out some current events that are going on, such as on the Memphis Island, I have two tribes. One is Minotaur and one is Goliath, and they are in a civil war over a volcano that's considered sacred to both of them. And they're fighting over who has the rights to the volcano. And then I'll throw in a couple plot hooks, such as players hear a rumor that a great treasure is located in this volcano. And if the players buy on that plot hook, then they're gonna go investigate the volcano. They'll run into the Goliaths and the Minotaurs who want them to stay away from the other tribe and to not go near the volcano. So then they have to decide what to do from there. Then I go into the settlements, such as the towns, and I make my notable people and places. And usually I do for places is I usually do a tavern, a blacksmith, and a church, and whoever the leader of, of the town is. If it's a mayor, I do his residence. If it's a noble house, I do their manor. And then I make NPCs for those spots. Because those are usually the most likely places adventurers are going to go in a town. And I put some plot hooks for the town in there as well, such as maybe the noble's daughter is having an affair with the local blacksmith, who's a commoner. And things like that, which are really more what we would think of side quests as like an MMO. Oh, but that the players can choose to explore that. And this helps give that organic feel that there's something going on, even if the players aren't involved in it. Plus, it gives them the option of choices, which is really important. And then I continue through the process, following the same thing. Then they go into specific questions, such as how many moons orbit your world. Okay, well, in Angler, I haven't really thought of this. I want 3 moons to orbit the world, and you can see all 3 at different times. Sometimes you'll see 1, sometimes you'll see 2. And like on the clearest night of the year, you would see all 3. So I would write in 3 on my document. They ask how many suns are there in the sky. Okay, I want 2. So I write in 2. And sometimes I'll even ask players these questions and let my players tell me how many suns there are in the sky. And I simply do it by, okay, it's midday, you look up at the sky, how many for a character, how many suns do you see? And do you know the names? And then if they say it's 1 and its name is Sol, I write down 1 sun named Sol. Whatever the answer is, I throw it in. And they continue with different questions. Is land ownership important for a citizen's social status? What kind of music's popular among the common people? And I answer all of these questions. And there's probably at least 50 to 100 different questions. And they have some really good ones, like how old is the world, what percentage of the world's population is male. And there's 120 different questions. And I go through and answer these. And by the time I do that and have the map, I have pretty much a complete world all set up. So that's kind of what I do. I find to be a Better Campaignmaster book 1, Building the World by Michael Booker and Absolute Tabletop's extremely helpful, especially the questionnaire for my part. So that's just kind of what I do. When I do world building, it takes various amount of time. Like I said, the first planet I did took me 100 hours in Microsoft Paint to get it ready to go to campaign cartographer and reproduce a better, prettier map. And that's not counting the time I spend answering the questions and thinking about the world. And it's an ongoing process. The real key to world building is start small. Only do maybe get your players started and one or two locations that they'll be going to. And run a session. Then have your players give you their backstories, and quite often they'll give you town names, NPC names, and maybe even in some terrain types to throw on your map. And then you start building those into the world. And then as you play, more of it gets fleshed out. You don't need the entire world done at once to run a campaign or a one-shot. Your group may never even leave the original city or the original town. They may decide to stay in the town and investigate a murder instead of whatever plot you actually wanted them to do. So this is kind of how I do world building, and I do it a little bit at a time, usually about an hour when I sit down and do it. So I hope you all learned a little bit and enjoyed the video. And as always, may the dice roll in your favor.